You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan, everything on Twitter. Hey, Dylan, the Auburn Athletic News. As it's been a week since I last posted, not because I took a break or anything, but I was on vacation, and it came very hard to try to find time to record while I was kind of sharing a house with the whole family. But I am back to talk about Auburn football and preparing everybody for the upcoming season, which becomes more and more important by the news headline that comes out surrounding Auburn football. Now, what I want to talk about today is this running back room. Last week talked about the DBs. This week talking about the running backs, because I think this is a very important position for this offense. Because when you're going through the summer, every eye is on the wide receiver room. Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, Perry Thompson, Horatio Fields, Malcolm Simmons. That list goes on and on and on. Auburn's wide receiver room in total is about like 6-7 deep. And when you combine that with, you have some tight ends that you might have a question mark surrounding just because you don't really know what to expect from them outside of Brandon Frazier, you go to the running back room because you can't throw the ball 50 times a game if you're Auburn. That's just not something that you can expect to see. This running back room is going to have to get its fair share of touches. Now, I think ultimately everyone kind of understands that, there's three guys you're really going to see the most of. That's no discredit to the guys behind them. Christian Burnett, Justin Jones, and Cole Gamble going to be seen as the walk-ons. I just don't think you're really going to see them on the field unless Auburn's up by a substantial margin. Now, guys behind, just ahead of them, Omar Mabson, the reclassification into the 25 class from 26. I don't imagine you will see very much of him. I think he's going to be redshirted this season, but I think next year, whenever you have some guys leave, I think that's when you can probably see a little bit more of him. Same thing with Alvin Henderson. I think you're going to see him in limited playing time. Definitely going to probably hit that 4-game stretch, in games such as like South Alabama, Ball State, and then Mercer. I guess not really 4, that's 3. But I think Alvin Henderson can prove to be very valuable down the stretch for Auburn if need be. But I think Alvin, again, I think he's more of A-Train's that guy you're looking at to be your next year's running back. But the main three we're going to talk about today, and the guys I think you're going to see the most of, starting with Darrell Robinson, but then going into Jeremiah Cobb and Damari Alston, just kind of working my way up through the depth chart as I see it. So Darrell Robinson, the UConn transfer, big body running back. And I think what I really compared him to is I think you're going to get some of the not the production you're going to get, but I think he's a good replacement for what you're losing in Jarquez Hunter, being that big body running back with speed. So I really like Darrell Robinson's game. He does have that home run threat ability. I think just him missing the spring with an injury and all that with Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb kind of take it over those 1 and 2 spots. I think you're going to see a fair share of Darrell Robinson. I just don't think it's going to be to the level you're going to see with Damari Alston. And I think Jeremiah Cobb offers a lot that neither one of those two can offer as well. But Darrell Robinson, I think what you saw from him at UConn is that ability to get out in the open space and do something with it. Something we haven't really seen out of the two backs that you expect to start for Auburn going into the season. And, of course, he did it at UConn. He rushed for 700 yards. He was like 12th in the nation in yards per carry. For sure, yard getter from Darrell Robinson. I think that really works out well in Auburn's favor. Because, again, as I mentioned, with the wide receivers and with how talented they are, everyone and their mother knows how talented Auburn's wide receiver room is. I think you're really going to see something special out of these three running backs. Because I don't think Auburn's really had a stable this deep in quite some time. I mean, I think there was some, what's the word, crossover between the Tank Bigsby, Jarquez, and Damari years. But ultimately, you really only saw Tank and Quez. Go back even further than that. I think with when you had guys like Booby Whitlow, it was really only Booby Whitlow and Cam Martin. 2017, Kerryon Johnson got the bulk. You rarely saw Petway, and you rarely saw Cam Martin. And then I think the last time you can really say Auburn had a stable like this would probably be 2013. And despite that, Trey Mason still got a heavy bulk of that carry. But Cameron Artis-Payne and Corey Grant also made their names known. And then you go to like 2010. I mean, you had Michael Dyer, you had Mario Fannin, and you had Ontario McCaleb. So it happened before in Auburn's past. But I think this year is really going to be the epitome of that with these three backs that Auburn has. So Darrell Robinson, I think, offers a lot for Auburn. You know, I think if it's like 3rd and 5, maybe you'll see him out there. And 2nd and short, you want to get a guy who can just go up the middle and just get those first sure yards up ahead. So I think you really get that out of Darrell Robinson. Now up next on the depth chart, I have Jeremiah Cobb. Now, Cobb has been around. He's seen himself. We've seen him mostly on kick return. Just because, you know, with Quez and Damari last year, they kind of took up the bulk of that, the carries on the field as the running back. But I think Jeremiah Cobb is going to see a lot more production this year just because of what he can do in open space. Now, I could see Jeremiah Cobb getting a lot of his touches inside the red zone just because he offers Jackson Arnold an escape. Because I think Jeremiah Cobb has the ability to be Auburn's scat back, that receiving back that can get Auburn some yards. You know, Auburn hasn't really had a receiving running back since, I want to say, Kerryon Johnson. And that's been since 2017. And that's really the last time I can say Auburn's had a receiving back that will be getting probably a good chunk of the targets just because, you know, you get a check down guy with a running back that can do that. And I think one thing that's great about Jeremiah Cobb is you haven't really seen a whole lot of Jeremiah Cobb. He's really just been a guy you throw in there late in the game, just kind of let him get a couple carries, run out the clock. But this year, I think he's earned the ability to get a lot more time on that field. And, I mean, the only that's keeping him from being the starter is Damari Alston. So getting into Damari Alston, he's going to be that workhorse running back out of this room. Just his ability to combine speed and strength and agility gives him that. I mean, this is a guy who's been waiting his turn for a few years now and getting that chance. And he's mentioned he wants to shut the doubters up. And I mean, I can't say I haven't been a doubter before. I've said it before that I think that Damari Alston wasn't a shoo-in for the running back starting position. But I think throughout the spring and the summer, he's definitely earned that as just being a guy who puts the team first, to say just a all-around great player and a pinnacle of what it means to be an Auburn the man. But I think that when you have Damari getting his chance, he's going to get the bulk of the carries. I'd probably say he gets around over 50% of the overall carries. I'd probably say 75 in that ballpark. Because I think Jeremiah's most of his touches are going to be receiving wise. But I think with the overall talent of this running back room altogether, I think it prevents Auburn from hitting another 1,000-yard rusher. I think Auburn this might be a hot take. I think Auburn's more likely to get a 1,000-yard receiver than they are to get a 1,000-yard rusher this year. Strictly because I think that this running back room is that talented, and they're going to keep each other from getting on the field as much. And, you know, it's different whenever you have like 4 different receivers on the field that you're just kind of sharing the, you know, catches with. It's way easier to get 1,000 yards, or not, I don't want to say way easier. Auburn hasn't got 1,000 yards since before I was born, but it's a lot easier for a receiver to get 1,000 yards by just having other receivers on the field with them than it is to have one running back get 1,000 yards with talented running backs behind them. Strictly because there's less carries to go around than there are receptions. I mean, most people throw more passes than they do. Then running backs get carries, unless it's just like an Ashton Jeanty, you know, give him the ball 80% of the time and it works 100% of the time. But overall, I think this running back room is very talented. I don't know where I'd rank it just in terms of, because I just haven't seen Darrell Robinson in an Auburn uniform yet. But Damari has a lot to show off, not to prove, to show off getting his chance as the number 1 running back. Jeremiah Cobb's going to get a chance to prove a lot of, I don't want to say doubters. I don't know if Jeremiah Cobb has very many doubters, but the chance to prove himself as well. The running back room has been patient. Jeremiah Cobb has been patient. Damari Alston's been patient. And they have guys behind them that are also extremely talented. Who knows what A-Train's going to do for Auburn whenever he gets his turn? Because I think Alvin Henderson has a lot to show off whenever it's his time to shine. And ultimately, it could be very soon for all we know. Alvin Henderson is going to see the field this season. Omar Mabson, again, I think he can show off a lot, but I think you're waiting a little bit longer for him just so he can, develop and get his chance next season. But ultimately, I like the running back room a lot. I just think that it'll be hard for the running back room to outshine the talent Auburn has at wide receiver, and they have to do a lot to do that. But I think that there is the talent to show how, what's the word I want to go for here, useful this running back room can be. Whenever Cam Coleman is getting double teamed, maybe Auburn's dealing with an injury in the wide receiver room, who can they rely on in this running back room is a reliable source for yards and production. So I'm excited to see what this running back room can do. Of course, I think that the past few years when you had Jarquez is like your powerhouse back. You had Tank Bigsby as your home run hitter back, and Auburn's always had that guy. And Damari Alston has everything possible to be that guy. But, of course, you got to wait till the season starts. And we are a little under a month away. Actually, a little over a month away. I can't do math. But, of course, it's a pre-recorded show. Forgot to mention that in the starter. But we're going to go quick little break. Let me know what you think of the Auburn running back room in the comment section below. Do you think Auburn could hit 1,000 yards on the ground with this running back room and with that wide receiver room demanding receptions? Let me know in the comment section below. Quick little break. Us has a break. We'll talk about some Auburn news because we got some things to bring up. And, of course, going to talk a little bit about way too early season preview. Of course, last week with me being on vacation, missed out on talking about the Georgia game. We'll talk about that us out this break. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back as I try to find the ad. And there it is.
Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program.
And of course, you find that merch on thewarreport.com. Go to the shop and you can get your very own college loop merch, the hat and the t-shirt. I'm to wear in your entire life. Go check that out today. Now, as we move on to the remainder of the show, we're going to talk about, we can go ahead and just kind of brief over the Georgia game this season before we get into the matters that people probably don't want to talk about anymore. So week 7 is where we're at right now. Auburn takes on the Georgia Bulldogs, the Deep South's oldest rivalry in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And, this game is very interesting for this season because, we really don't know what to expect from Georgia either. You have Gunnar Stockton going into his first full season as a starting quarterback. Georgia, they're in the part of a dynasty where you're reloading more often than you're rebuilding. But again, I think overall this team is still pretty good. A lot of question marks surrounding a few positions, running backs. I don't think defense really needs that. I think Kirby Smart always is going to put a good defense up on the field. But again, this is a game that whenever I look at the season and I'm kind of sorting out games I think Auburn can win, games that Auburn will win, Auburn games that they will lose, Georgia's typically the one I throw in the lose category. And it's not because I don't think it's possible. It's just because Auburn has shown an incapability of beating Georgia over the past few years. I mean, Auburn hasn't won in Athens since 2005. Auburn hasn't beaten Georgia since 2017. And I mean, even then, that was an SEC championship. Auburn beat them in the regular season and lost the same season. So 1-1 that year. So even when Auburn gets the chance to beat Georgia, they come back and beat them again or lose to them. And again, I think that this is an interesting season for a lot of teams. We're going into year 2 of the CFP expansion. game. You don't have to go undefeated anymore to make the playoffs. You don't have to. You really can lose 2 games and make the playoffs at this point if you're a Power 4 team. But kind of looking at Auburn versus Georgia, I mean, with this game being at Jordan-Hare Stadium, this is going to be a night game, which is the first time that's happened since the prayer at Jordan-Hare. Very interesting game ahead for both teams. Very interesting season ahead for both teams. And, at this point, Auburn is, I think, 3-2 in my predictions, beating Baylor, beating South Alabama, beating Ball State, and then struggling against Oklahoma in that first SEC game, and then kind of taking on a Texas A&M team who's coming off a bye week. So Auburn gets a bye week before this game, and I think that kind of helps them going into this game. But I think this game is going to be very close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think last year felt like a blowout, but really it wasn't. Auburn has been competitive with Georgia over the past few years, and that's something that hang your hat on. Don't hang a banner about it, but moral victories for the most part. I think Georgia kind of goes into this year being one of the best teams in the country, and I mean they have every chance to prove that throughout the year. They play Alabama this year. They play Texas this year. And again, I've predicted Auburn to go 8-4 this year. It's already happened. So, you got to get those losses in somehow, some way. I just don't think Auburn's going to beat Georgia this year. And even then, it's hard for me to say even next year will be that part. It's just Auburn has a weakness when it comes to playing Georgia. Something always goes wrong whenever Auburn's playing Georgia, no matter how close it is, no matter if it's just a flat-out blowout. Last year proved that Auburn was in the game for so long, and then all of a sudden on 4th and short, Peyton Thorne makes a boneheaded mistake on a read option. Jarquez Hunter probably would have gotten 4 or 5 yards out of that on a 4th and 1, and then he gets the ball pulled from his arms. But again, I think this is a game Auburn will lose, but I think it's also a game Auburn will still go on to prove that they are a very competitive football team. I think ultimately this is a great chance for Auburn to kind of show off that they can beat teams as good as Georgia. And, with them kind of losing close to Oklahoma in this kind of version of their season, I think that Auburn at this point, I mean, they're 3-3. There's conversations that are being had, but I think that you have to give the benefit of the doubt for the remainder of the year. 3-3 at this start of the year. I mean, this is the hardest part of Auburn's schedule. Had A&M not been coming off a bye week, I'd probably be a little more confident saying Auburn would win that game. Oklahoma, I think with them already, with this game being in Norman, it's hard for me to say Auburn can go into Norman and get a win. You have 2 away games against 2 tough SEC opponents for Auburn. You go into Georgia, and then Georgia can punch you in the mouth, and it's up to Auburn to kind of punch them back. And that's fully on them. But the remainder of that season becomes a lot easier after this game. Just hopefully the conversations don't become too relevant, talking about a 3-3 start to the year. But I could very well be wrong as well. But ultimately, it's up to Auburn to kind of go into Georgia and earn respect. I think Kirby Smart respects Auburn enough to take them completely 100% serious in these games. But again, Georgia is a kryptonite of Auburn, and that is very evident. What would you think of this game in the comment section below as well? Again, I just think Auburn's got a full weakness when it comes to playing against Georgia. And believe me, I don't even know. I'll throw a party the day Auburn finally beats Georgia again. It has been a long, long time. I was in high school the last time Auburn beat Georgia, and I am now getting my master's degree. So let me know what you think about that game in the comment section below. But, of course, as we go on with the remainder of the show, just a little good news before we get to the bad news. Recruiting additions. Auburn gets a 5-star long snapper, Travis Wakefield, and is based off of his scouting report, one of the top snappers in the country. Received a lot of offers. He ran a 4.67 40-yard dash, and his average snap time was 0.68 seconds. One of the top long snappers in the country. I think overall, I think he was in the top 5, somewhere in there. But Cole's Kicking is the premier spot to recruit or to scout punters, long snappers, and kickers, and that's some of the important positions on the field at any given time. I don't care what anyone says. You got to have a punter, you got to have a long snapper, and you got to have a kicker. But yeah, good pickup for Auburn, getting a 5-star long snapper. Always gonna shout out the special teamers. They all deserve that respect. Now, for the bad news that have happened this week since I've been on vacation, starting off with a football player, DJ Barber, has been released from the team after getting arrested for drug trafficking. Don't want to go too much in detail. That happened earlier this week, but I just kind of wanted to touch on that. And then, of course, more recently, Todd Pettiford has also been arrested on a DUI, which is a tough look, not only just because it's a terrible thing to just do in general, but, of course, he is 19 years old. He did release a statement just, I believe, yesterday. And he said, last night I made a serious mistake and one that I take full responsibility for. My actions put myself and others at risk, and for that, I'm deeply sorry. There's no excuse. To my family, teammates, coaches, and fans, I know I've let you down. I understand the disappointment and concern this has caused, and I want you to know that I am taking this seriously. This is not who I am and not who I will be. I'm committed to learning from this moment and making meaningful, positive changes in my life. I'm grateful for the support and accountability of those around me, and I will work to earn back the trust I've lost, end quote. And I think it's a mature response. I know Auburn is and Bruce Pearl are going to take this matter very seriously. Probably not going to have a very fun couple of practices back whenever Todd returns. But again, Todd is, going to be the lifeblood of this Auburn basketball team. It's just a tough look to happen, and it was a dumb mistake. I trust Bruce Pearl and Todd will grow from this. But yeah, it's just a stupid thing to do. Just a stupid thing to do. But again, I think Todd will get better from this. I trust Bruce Pearl 100% when it comes to how he handles players and disciplining whenever they do something stupid. But ultimately, the Auburn's going to have a great basketball year. But yeah, just a boneheaded mistake from a kid. It happens. Just don't let it happen again. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm undermining what he did. No one was hurt. And it's just a stupid thing. Stupid mistake that he did. But he'll grow from it. I trust Bruce Pearl again. But with that, it's going to do it for the Stop of the College League podcast. Kind of a sour way to end it, talking about one football player getting kicked from the team for being being stupid, and then Todd Pettiford making a boneheaded mistake. But there's growth in these things. Learn to get better. But that's going to do it for the Stop of the College League podcast yet again. I'm Dylan Larck on Twitter. Here, check me out on Instagram as well for my personal life. Dylan Larck, DYLNLARCK. Check me out on TikTok as well. It's @YouBullyTank again. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel right here at The College Loop. And, of course, all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the works, all of The College Loop, audio versions of the show available on Spotify, Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. And thank you all for tuning in to this pre-recorded installment of The College Loop podcast. Of course, I've started to do this a little bit more on Sundays. Just whenever I'm with my fiance, the Wi-Fi here is not great, so live streams don't really work out well whenever we're here. But that being said, thanks for tuning in to the College League podcast yet again, and as always, War Eagle.